You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
You mean like Democrats?
The Brock Wally program.
This one's going to be about minimum wage, or some people call it the living wage. A living wage, that sounds really nice, right? The problem is that there's a lot of unintended consequences, and the consequences tend to actually hit the poor. What basically happens here is the government sets the minimum amount somebody can be paid, and they do so not through cooperation, but through coercion, through governmental power. And of course, demagoguery is much preferred over actual data. And so guys like me end up having to be the boogeyman, because we kind of see behind the curtain. Realities are going to befall the poor when the consequences hit the fan, and that's what I'm going to explain. Now, minimum wage law should sort of decompose in people's minds if they even think about it for a couple seconds. For example, right now it's like 7-something minimum wage, but why not just make it 10? 15, 20. Why not pay them $1,000 an hour to wash dishes? Why not? Wouldn't it be better if everybody was making $200,000 a year? I mean, if $750 is compassionate, then $1,000 an hour, and that's real love. That's real compassion. $1,000 an hour, $750. I mean, chicken scratch. You can't determine a man's financial worth hourly just by making it illegal to pay him said amount. It's just arbitrary and ridiculous. And because it's arbitrary and ridiculous, the floor falls out. To a businessman, anybody who owns a business, you have employees. Wages mean cost. That's money flying out of the till. That's cost. Because Washington speaks, because they just set some random number. That doesn't mean an employer is actually going to be able to pay that. A wage is a price, a commodity on labor. That's what it is. You do A, you get paid B. Different kinds of labor, say dishwashing and retina surgery, are going to be valued differently in economic terms. Now, that doesn't mean you're any less of a human being. Your soul, the way God sees you. Clearly, the gauntlet, both educationally and discipline and work ethic, etc., to become a retina surgeon is a little bit different than it is to scrub a pot. That's just a fact. A minimum wage fixed by law ignores that reality, that fiscal reality. What it is a form of price fixing by the government that tries to distribute wealth before the wealth is actually created. Of course, when the rubber hits the road with these policies, the people most likely to be affected are at the bottom: the unskilled, the inarticulate, the handicapped, the young, the ones with language barriers. These are the people who end up getting, pardon my French, but screwed by the Geppetto puppeteering that the government wants to do. Because you have to remember, low-paying jobs, like minimum wage jobs, they're entry-level jobs. And very, very, very few people actually stay at entry-level jobs. In fact, in today's workforce, it's so abysmal. You show up clean and on time, you show some respect to your boss, you're likely to be running the joint inside of a year. You can't mobily move up. This is all just leftist lies to begin with. But the point is that entry-level jobs are often worked for experience, for connections. These jobs are necessary. You don't just come in as a CEO executive. Of course, the biggest bite in the butt that comes is when you arbitrarily raise the minimum wage to a place that the economy, the private industry, private enterprise cannot actually pay. Those jobs, they disappear. For example, if I have a business with you, Mr. Viewer, and we only have so much money to pay employees, doesn't matter what Uncle Sam says, we have to pay them. If we can't pay them that, we don't hire anybody. That should make sense to even the most dense of Marxists listening. So once again, just because you feel like you're helping the poor doesn't mean you're actually helping the poor. The people who face fiscal realities are actually the people who really care about the poor.
I think the responsibility that the Democrats have may rest more in resisting any efforts by Republicans in the Congress to put some standards and tighten up a little on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
À Brooklyn, les productions